This video will contain spoilers for the original Final Fantasy VII and the entire remake trilogy, including events yet to take place in Part 3. Please proceed with caution if you haven't played the original game yet and you don't want it or the events of Part 3 spoiled. My theories are based on my own experiences with the game, and it's always been my assumption that the canon is ever evolving. Please be respectful to each other, and I hope you enjoy. Look, we've all been busy, it's very understandable. We haven't exactly been stopping to smell the roses. But we're reaching a certain point in our timeline between Rebirth and Part 3. Interviews are starting to pop up here and there with the director. Cast members are posting mysterious and vague social media posts alluding to something happening soon. Part 3 is progressing very well, and I think we're just around the corner from a reveal. So as I see it, there's no better time to start looking at things in Rebirth a bit closer to maybe pitch some narrative Hail Marys to see if we can pick up on some breadcrumbs that Square may have been leaving us for Part 3. In this video, I have some analysis on bonds of friendship and to be a hero for you, the game's hardest challenges. We'll have a look at the slog it takes to get to them, the skill it takes to confront them, and what exactly it is we're confronting. So let's start this one with a question. Do bonds and hero have a hidden narrative thread running through them? Let's get into it. Bonds and Hero are the pinnacle of the mountain of both content and difficulty in Rebirth. Only the most skilled or most insane players can ever hope to stand a chance in conquering their sky-high level of difficulty. They're the bane of rage-inclined gamers and their controllers the world over. For the uninitiated, Bonds of Friendship is one of the two final challenges in Chadley's VR simulator. To unlock the brutal and legendary challenges, you first have to complete the Proto-Relic side mission, which includes finishing side quests all throughout the main campaign, culminating in the player having to scour the entire Meridian Ocean for lost treasure and defeat ancient monsters in Chapter 13. For this, you'll unlock Gilgamesh's Island, hidden in the mists of the ocean path leading to the northern continent. Once you go there, you'll have to beat 3 combat challenges, which have their own prerequisites to even unlock. Trust me, you have to do a lot for this. And these challenges make you fight pairs of summons. It's only then that you get to have a crack at the big man himself, Gilgamesh, the swordsman of legend. And a pushover, he is not. I'm a big enough man to admit that in my first playthrough I knocked the difficulty down to easy to beat Gilgamesh's Island. I didn't know it at the time, but Square had a surprise in store for any players who decided to do this, but we'll talk about that one a little bit further on. Once you've done all this successfully, what's your reward? Well, it's double-edged. Chadley gives you access to some of the most powerful materia in the game, like Re-Raise and Swiftcast. You'll have some leveling to do on them for sure, but they are definitely worth it. You're given Gilgamesh as a summon, and most importantly, Chadley upgrades the combat simulator to version 3.3.3.0, that's far too many trees. Its final and most cruel version. It feels like you're nearly there, doesn't it? You're easily around 100 hours deep in the game at this point, and you've done everything. But the brutal and legendary challenges, well, they're a whole new chapter of pain, and a whole new level of combat to master. I'm not even going to get too deep into the individual trials, because this video is primarily about bonds and its secrets, but I'd be remiss if I didn't give a quick rundown of the pain that awaits you before you get there. Knowing the full path that it takes to get there is important context for sure. The brutal challenges as I see them are the beginning of the true endgame challenge in Rebirth. They're the cliff off which you must do a leap of faith in order to start preparing yourself for the Bonds and Hero challenges. There's 5 of them in total. The first 4 are basically super versions of previous challenges. They're populated by all kinds of horrible mixes and matches of side bosses and greater enemies from throughout the game. This is the point where you have to learn to sharpen your materia and loadouts to deal massive damage and take advantage of all kind of elemental weaknesses, while simultaneously protecting your party from whatever nasty status effects might be waiting for you. Players who are going on to hard mode will usually try to do at least the first 4 of these challenges before their hard mode run, because the rewards include the third and final available elemental and magnify materias. Whether your goal is to finish the simulator or do hard mode, you'll definitely need those. What's that? You feel like you're confident after the first 4 brutal challenges? Well, bad news. Remember earlier when I said Square had a surprise in store for me? Well, here it is. Rulers of the Outer World. It's not only every set of summons and Gilgamesh himself in a gauntlet, but a VR version of Sephiroth himself. Conquering this mammoth of a challenge is certainly no mean feat, and requires a thorough mastering of the combat system to even attempt using a guide for. Big shout out to people like OptiNoob and Bradman. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not sure I would have figured out this challenge without these guys laying the groundwork and strategizing their little hearts out to help us all. The reward for taking on all of Final Fantasy VII's gods in one gauntlet? Well, it's the Gotterdammerung, literally translating to God Killer, The God of Damarung fills your limit break at the outset of every fight and makes your limit gauge tick up over time continuously. It's crazy powerful, and you probably won't even use it in the legendary challenges. So here you are. You're about to face solo challenges that will destroy your characters on a physical level in the same way the Temple of the Ancients solo trials destroyed them on an emotional level. 9 challenges. 7 challenges till the end. Well, 7 challenges until the hardest 2, but you get the comparison.
7 seconds till the end.
These first 7 challenges are solo trials. Each character has one, and they're tailor-made to break your limits, so many puns, in 2 ways. Firstly, you have to know the enemies well enough to tailor-make a materia setup that can work across all 5 bouts, balancing offense and defense against some of the toughest enemies the game has to offer, and all solo. Secondly, you need to know every weapon skill and ability that each character has, and where to appropriately apply them if you're going to best these mammoth tasks. They really are perfectly designed pinnacle of both knowledge and skill. All that's left now are the co-main events. I'm going to talk about Bonds and Hero as kind of the one event, because even though there's 2 different sets of challenges, I think they kind of narratively give off the same vibe and push the characters to face the same kind of confrontations in each one. You've overcome everything the game has to throw at you at this point. You've taken Cloud and Sephiroth through to be a hero, faced down all the proto-relic beasts again, as well as the mighty summons, and cut through them all with Sephiroth at your side. Not even Odin, Final Fantasy VII's god of death itself, could stop you. You now stand before the confluence of the entire game. The last and most difficult challenge I've personally faced in the series, maybe even in gaming as a whole. Even getting to this point is a victory, so a huge well done if you're someone who's reached this point. The only thing that could make these challenges more relevant is if they had a deep-rooted and hidden narrative element to them that you could only see if you had to try them over and over again, What made me initially realise that there might be more than just a combat trial here, believe it or not, was the soundtrack. I was shuffling through it on my headphones, and I heard the track from Bonds of Friendship come on. When I looked at what the actual track was, I saw it was the Gastropod theme. Wait, the Gastropod theme? No hate towards that theme at all, it's an amazing piece of music. But of all the epic high energy and hype building music on the soundtrack, they chose the Gastropod theme. For the largest section of the toughest challenge in the game? Why? Well, hold on just a second now. Gastropod as an enemy is an interesting choice when you think about it. Built by Hojo as a robot that goes and captures people for him to experiment on. We witnessed this firsthand on the beach at Costa del Sol. It's equipped with Mako tanks on its back, assumedly to store its victims in so Hojo can transport them back to larger holding tanks. The kind of holding tanks that Zack and Cloud were stored in after the Nibelheim incident. The incident that single-handedly kickstarted the entire story of Final Fantasy VII. Noticing this little detail sent me off a rabbit hole that culminated in me realising that these 2 challenges might be a microcosm of the entire game's narrative. Let me break that down a little bit more clearly. During the first 6 fights of Bonds of Friendship, the Gastropod theme plays. In a combat challenge where Zack and Cloud fight together, this seems pretty coincidental in and of itself. In fights 7, 8 and 9, the track Rumble with Rufus plays, Rufus Shinra's boss theme. There's multiple ways we can look at this. Maybe now we've broken free of Hojo, we're taking the fight higher up in Shinra, up to Rufus himself. This theme song represents the closest character to kings that the world of Final Fantasy VII has. Rufus has the power to control continents and shift the balance of power in the world. He's arguably one of the most powerful mortal beings on the planet in Final Fantasy VII. And in the last round, the music changes again. The track is called Duel with the Divine. Straight off the bat you can see where we're going with this. Confronted in the finale of both of the hardest challenges in the game with Odin, the game itself proclaims him as the knight who claims war and death as his domain. In fact, Nibelheim itself, in the region intel, is described as being a gateway to the land of the dead. The same region we find Odin in. He's the closest thing we get to death itself being manifest in the game, so facing him in round 10 of both the hardest challenges in the game feels narratively significant when you consider Final Fantasy VII's tight and well-established links to death as a theme. I personally think that the unspoken narrative in both of these challenges goes something like this. To be a hero represents Cloud's potential power at Sephiroth's side, dizzying heights of skill, whirlwinds of blades, their synergy attacks building Cloud's limit level each time and granting Sephiroth unlimited MP, which could be interpreted as unlimited power for Sephiroth through Cloud. The move simultaneously suggests that they're both part of the same DNA by virtue of its name, Double Helix. Sephiroth will use Cloud for the power he can drain from him as long as he can use him for. He'll topple any god and monster he can while using him, but he will ultimately discard him. Bonds of Friendship, on the other hand, represents struggle. Zack and Cloud face all of the most powerful enemies in the game together in 10 rounds, from all of the summons to some of the toughest enemies in the Meridian Ocean. Toward the end, there's one oddly placed enemy that supports this theory pretty well, the Mind Flayer. He's a relatively low level mini-boss, but he has an interesting mechanic. He can only be pressured by synergy attacks. Cloud and Zack have to work together to confront overwhelming odds. Conversely to Cloud and Sephiroth's synergy attack, Cloud and Zack's Soldier Honor is framed as necessary in this fight. Mind Flayer has no weakness other than this, so it's the only way to make the fight go smoothly. While the buffs are the same as Cloud and Sephiroth, it feels decidedly more of a teamwork move between Cloud and Zack than a symbiotic relationship. We go on to face the same enemies in the last 2 rounds: Bahamut, hailed as the Dragon King and God of Destruction, and Odin, the knight who claims dominion over death itself. Finally, we arrive at my ultimate point. In both challenges, we face Odin. As we've stated already, the game's God of Death itself. It's a curious thing how both times Cloud has stood before death, he does so with support. In one, he's being manipulated and exploited for his potential power, and in the other, he confronts those same themes of death and loss but with a friend by his side. Both of them raging against destiny itself to try and save the planet and everyone they love. What's most interesting to me is that throughout this game, Cloud has never confronted death alone. Even at the peak of the game's challenges, where storyline is weaved into every production choice, Cloud never confronts death alone. As I see it, that's for the next game. Until then, the ultimate reward is a ribbon. And while that doesn't seem like the greatest reward for the hardest challenge in the game, considering it as a narrative point, this is Zack passing Aerith's ribbon to Cloud. Hopefully it will serve as a comfort to him when he finally confronts the truth of death in part 3. Alone.